Okay, so tonight I'm going to go ahead and finally get my catch can installed. I got mine from Mike Norris. Basically it comes with a small mounting bracket, nut bolt and washer, some extra hose. I went ahead and got the upgraded aviation style fittings, so these have actual threaded fittings that connect to the inlet and outlet ports on the catch can, and these just insert into the end of the hoses. So once we cut the hoses on the car and then splice back in with this hose here, I'm just going to basically insert these into the end, and they just kind of slide in like that. They're graduated so they get a little more friction the further you push them in, but if you want to, you could put a small hose clamp on there, but I don't think it's going to be a problem with the pressures that we're dealing with. They don't come out very easy, so it should be fine for what we're doing. This is the mounting bracket. This is the bracket that actually goes over the catch can, and it's got a small set screw here. I don't know if you can see that, but right there's a set screw that's going to take a small Allen wrench. We'll go ahead and get that tightened down and positioned where we want. So first things first, I got to figure out where I'm going to put it in the car. Mine's going on a Magnuson, so probably going to have to mount mine on the driver's side, and I think I'm going to use this bracket to kind of sync it up with where my cold air intake is mounted. So seems to be the best place, but once we get into the engine bay, I'll show you how it works. Okay, so now we're looking at the engine bay, and based on all the instructions that I've seen, we need to be dealing with this hose right here. So this hose comes right here and it dumps down back to right there. So we need to insert the catch can somewhere in line on this hose. This hose ends up running all the way along the supercharger, and it ends up connecting right there. It looks like I'm going to have to mount it basically right here on this bracket underneath my cold air intake. So I went ahead and removed the two bolts that hold it in place. So now I can basically just lift up on the air box, and I can slide that bracket in here underneath, and we'll figure out the best way to position it. Okay, so we got the bracket and the mount in place. You can see I went ahead and hooked the bracket up right underneath the air box here, and then I went ahead and loosely mounted the mount for the catch can itself. So it's going to drop right down in here. Right, so I'll tighten that up once I get everything installed, but that seems like the best place to put it. So if we come around to the other side, we look at it from this angle, you get a little better view of how it's mounted in there. This is the elbow bracket that comes with it, the 90 degree, and I just mounted the actual bracket that holds the catch can here. Now we got to get these hoses situated. So basically, again, it's this hose here, runs all the way back, comes out back here, right off the end of the valve cover, right behind the valve cover, very back of the valve cover. You'll see it right there. Okay, so we just need to pull this hose off the supercharger. It comes off pretty easy, and I'm just going to pull it out of that first zip tie right there. I'm going to leave everything else on. That should give me enough hose right there. I may not even cut that. I may just leave it the way it is. It should be enough. So now I get an idea how that catch can is going to sit in there. Grab the catch can and just slide it in there. Okay, so now we need to cut the hose that's going to connect the supercharger basically from here right down to there. So I've got my fitting. This is the part that's going to, it screws right onto there. So I'm going to insert this in the end of this hose. Basically just slides right in the end. Push it in there nice and firm. Okay, so that, like I said, is going to go here onto the catch can itself. And then we need just enough to go from there I'm actually going to run it up through here. There's a little zip tie right here. You can barely see that, but I'm going to run it through this zip tie back up onto this connector, and I'm going to try to get it up as high as I can. So we'll get that all sized and figure out where we're going. So feeding that through that zip tie that's already there. Okay, so I want to make sure I've got enough of this hose to get on nice and deep onto that fitting. So that should be good right there. So we should just be able to slide that on, push it all the way up. Perfect. So now this hose I'm going to have to trim. Now we're going to trim this hose to basically fit right about there onto the catch can. So I'm probably going to cut it probably right about there where my thumb is, because I still have to put the fitting in. That'll bring it out a little bit. So if I cut it right there, that should give me just enough extra hose, have plenty of room to attach the fitting. So there we go. We'll mark that with my thumb, kind of put a little gouge in it. I should be able to cut it right there. Okay, so we got the hose that we were talking about. It's going to connect up to there, and I'm basically going to cut it right about there. Try to get it nice and square so we get a good cut. That should be plenty once I put the fitting back on there. So here we go. There we go. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and insert our fitting. Push it all the way in. Come right to here. Now we've got our fitting in. We're basically going to screw it right here. Okay, so we know that's going to mount up. Okay, now that we got the outgoing line hooked up, now I'm going to hook the fitting into the incoming line. Get that all the way bottomed out. There we go. And just do a test fit here. We're going to thread this on to the inlet port of the catch can. Okay, so that's it. That's pretty much all there is to it. I'm going to pull the can up a little bit, and that's probably how it'll end up mounting, is something like that once I get it all tightened down. But you can see the hoses are now connected. I didn't really have to cut the hose, the inlet hose. I did have to use some of the hose that comes with the kit from Mike Norris to cut a nice piece to connect up into the intake that goes into the supercharger. But that's pretty small run, and that should be it. All there is to it now is for me to get in here and tighten this stuff up. Alright guys, we got it all finished up. Everything's now mounted. It was a little hard to get all those bolts and nuts tightened up to get this thing situated in there, so I didn't really film that, but everybody's mount's going to be different anyway. The bottom line is, what you really need to know is the hoses that come off the PCV system. This one comes from the back for the Magnuson, comes off the back of the valve cover there, routes right up across here, comes along back, goes into the inlet on the catch can. The outlet on the catch can goes right into that port on the Magnuson. As long as you have those hoses connected correctly to the right ports on the catch can, you're pretty much good to go. Pretty straightforward, not too bad. Mounts in there nice and snug, so we're good to go.